What's up? Happy Tuesday. So funny thing, I promised that I would be going live on a Monday, and it's not Monday, it's Tuesday. My apologies if anyone was like really waiting for me to jump on here. I just couldn't make it happen yesterday. I had too much going on, but I'm here now. So that's what counts, right? Better late than never. So here we go. I just wanted to take a few minutes to kind of go through my experience throughout training. So for those of you who are watching this right now and don't know what I'm talking about, I competed in a bodybuilding competition on May 7th. So I think it was like 2 weeks ago now. And it was like a 22-week training program. I hired a coach, I did all the things. So I just kind of wanted to share a little bit about that journey. I've gotten asked a lot of questions, one-offs, either via Instagram or like with people in my life about like the different parts of the process. So I figured that must mean that some people are curious. So I thought I would just kind of go into it. So if this doesn't interest you at all, I am no harm, no foul. I won't be offended. But if it does, like, cool. And feel free to pop other questions in the chat and I will get to them. But first off, I thought I would start off by sharing kind of like my story about why I decided to do this in the first place. So the biggest reason I decided to do this in the first place is if you rewind back to, I don't even know when, but a few years into my like late teens and early 20s, I made this like long document. I probably still have it on my Facebook, and I'm actually kind of curious to go back and read it, but it was like my bucket list, right? Or like goals that I wanted to hit. And one of them was I wanted to do a bikini or fitness competition. So I decided I would do one. So when I was 22, back in 2014 is when I actually competed. 2013 must have been when I started training. I hired a coach and I decided to do it. I had no clue what I was getting myself into, like zero, like no idea. I thought you had to look good on stage. I thought you had to pose in a bikini. I thought you would have to work out like all the time. And I loved working out. Here's what I didn't like doing: dieting at all. And so when you do something for the first time and you're a true newbie, you learn a lot. So I learned a lot. And one of the biggest things that I learned through going through that process is that to do these type of fitness competitions, like diet matters a ton. And it matters, this is just me speaking as a total amateur, but I would say, at least 70% of the process is following your diet and sticking to it. So the first time I did this, I did not follow my diet very well. I was a bartender, so I was available during the day, which was great for working out. But then at night, I would be up until like 2 o'clock in the morning. I would be starving. I would be hanging out with a bunch of drunk people. And I was all around fried food like all the time. So I would be lying to you if I said that I didn't like grab a nacho here or a french fry there or any of that stuff. So not only was I like cheating, but I was cheating with like fried bad bar food. And I also just didn't really have that supportive of a community. Like my friends at the time didn't really even work out. No one understood what I was doing. So it was like, you can have a piece of pizza or you can have a drink, like just one, it's not that big of a deal. And I didn't really realize how big of a deal it was. So I listened to them and was more easily influenced. So anyway, long-winded, but all of that to say that I knew when I got on stage the very first time that I had not really given it my all. I think I gave it my all for the time being and what I had to give, and I learned a lot from the process, but I knew that I could have done better, and so I always said that I would do it again. And also, like, same thing that I'll tell you here later, but like, I liked the process. I like having something to train for, so I just knew I wasn't like done. And I kind of like set this arbitrary number that around when I turned 30, I would do it again. So that was kind of my motivation for wanting to do this. Was I knew I could do better. It was a personal achievement that I wanted to like test myself, do better, and actually fully commit to the process. So if you look at my goal like that, like I did it. Like I honestly, like I try not to be a too conceited of a person or too over the top, but I totally crushed it. I really followed the process. I really leaned into the process. And if my biggest goal was to just fully show up and commit myself 100% to this process, then I absolutely achieved that. So for that, I'm like really, really excited. But couple other things that I get talked about. People ask me all the time, did you hire a coach or did you do it for yourself? Yes, I hired a coach, and you need a coach, maybe even a few coaches. This process is so hard and it is so specific that you need people who are like live, eat, breathe, like this is their jam, and they know the judging, they know what you need to look like on competition day, they know the whole process in and out. It's a lot. It is a lot. So you really need to have that person to lean on. So with that being said, like if you're thinking about doing this at all, like hire a coach, hire a bodybuilding specific coach, talk to different coaches and find out if they're used to training women or men, you know, kind of whatever perspective you're coming at it from. Find out if they have coached other people in the categories that you're going to be competing, how successful those people were. Like lots of other questions in addition to just like how much do you charge. There's a lot that goes into it. And again, if you are considering doing this at all and you would like some suggestions or just kind of like a where to start, reach out. I met a lot of people through this process and I would be happy to share some of my connections. But just to give a shout out, I was coached by Coleman Atkins. He like his company is like Coleman Built, and he wrote both my training plan, so the fitness plan that I followed, and then also the diet plan that I followed. And he was a big emotional support system too when I needed it, and somebody to lean on. So that's who I used, and he's great. He's local to Colorado, although we did all of our workouts, or like all of our programming was as if he was kind of just an online coach. We never worked out in person. We communicated all through an app and through a phone, but a lot. We talked a lot. I don't think he misses me at this point because we talked so much all the time, so regularly. But yeah, just to touch a little bit more on that, like coaching is really important. There are people who, in any respect, whether we're talking about in fitness, in bodybuilding, in anything, there are people who are experts, and their job is to help you be the best that you can be, and to make it so that you don't have to know everything and learn everything, right? Like they're the ones who are going to kind of get you from where you are now to where you want to be without putting in all the extra work and learning all the things that you don't know or making all the mistakes to get there. So like coaching is so worth it. I've hired personal development coaches, I've hired business coaches, I've hired fitness coaches, I've hired lots of different coaches, and it is worth it every single time. With that being said, with bodybuilding and fitness competitions in specific, like it is really hard to be objective. You definitely kind of develop a little bit of like a body dysmorphia and a little bit of a loss of your like true sense of self. So having just that outsider's perspective who can like look at the industry standard, look at what your goals are, and then like hold you accountable and help you get there and do what you need to do with taking out any of the emotion behind it, or taking, just having those really clear lens to look through, was, completely necessary. I could not have gotten on stage without having hired a coach. So that was really helpful. And again, like his name was Coleman. Happy to pass along the info if that's something that you guys are interested in. Just reach out to me individually. So I just quickly wanted to hit on like what I learned. And so obviously I already shared my story of when I did this before. The biggest thing that I learned was like truly how dedicated that you need to be to the process, that there really is no cutting corners. If you want to be successful at least, and like how important diet was. And then this time around, some of my biggest takeaways was like meal timing. That was really interesting to me. So Coleman, when he would send me my food, he would also like break it down and tell me like when I needed to eat that food. And this is something I want to try to take forward into my like normal day-to-day life. So like the biggest thing was like eating relatively soon within when I woke up, but then making sure that I ate either my first meal or my first and my second meal, specifically the second meal, within an hour and a half of when I was going to go to the gym. So I don't know the specifics and the reasons behind that, but it was always like a pretty well-balanced meal, lots of fats, lots of proteins, lots of carbs, well-balanced, good energy source, just I think to make sure that you had properly digested everything before you went to the gym, so that you didn't feel, full, sick, heavy, sluggish, any of that stuff, and that your body had already broken a lot of things down so that you had all of the calories and all of the nutrients ready and available to kind of fuel your workout. So that was really interesting. It was like eating within an hour and a half of starting your workout. And then on the flip side, he wanted me to eat my post-workout meal. Again, it was like usually super well balanced. within 30 to 45 minutes of working out. And so I ate 5 meals a day, like small meals, but meals, not really snacks. And so 2 of those were heavily dictated and spaced around what time and when I did my workout. So that was like one big thing I learned. And I think, I'm somebody who believes that you need to fuel your workouts. So I will continue to try to kind of eat within those time windows, at least in respect to like when I'm working out. I'm not necessarily eating 5 meals a day. Right now I'm eating 3 meals a day and with some more like snack type stuff in between. If you have questions about like what I'm doing after the show, that's a whole nother topic. But yeah, so meal timing was a big takeaway for me. And then the other thing that I don't know if I like learned it, but I experienced it for myself, was just how reducing intensity and reducing cardio actually really helped me with both muscle building and fat loss. So I'm somebody who's been a runner my whole life. Like I started running when I was in high school. I've run 7 marathons, I think. And I like enjoy going for a run. But so like when given the choice to do cardio, I've always gone for a run. And he like nixed that out of this program. Too intense. It would spike some of those like hormones that help you want to keep your stress hormones. It would kind of spike the stress hormones. Same thing with CrossFit. He really limited how much I could go to CrossFit because he was worried about my ability to recover, as well as like how intense and what that stress would do to my body, as far as like being on like a weight loss and muscle building journey. And then also going back to the running for cardio is like, I've always known / heard people say like running actually like breaks down a lot of your muscle tissue. So as somebody who, for the first half of my training period, so again, I trained for 22 weeks, really from like December to February, we were focused on like muscle building. So I was eating more of a calorie surplus. I was eating about like 2,000, around like 2,000 to 2,200 calories a day. And I was working out and like really trying to like hit failure, go heavy on my weights, all of that stuff. And so like, why would I be trying to build all this muscle in the gym and then going for runs and kind of breaking down my muscle? So my cardio for the most part was walking. I was allowed to go for outdoor walks, indoor walks, and then eventually we added in the Stairmaster for a little bit more of like a leg workout in addition to cardio. And the cardio really did increase quite a bit once I got within like 3 weeks of the show, 3 weeks to a month. Now, again, this is just my journey. Everybody's body's different. Everybody's body responds differently. So, somebody may be doing a lot of cardio a lot sooner or like with a lot more time before the show, or maybe somebody like doesn't do any cardio and then they like hit it a little bit right before the show. It just kind of depends on what your coach thinks you need and what, like how your body responds in general. But so reducing my cardio and upping my calories in the beginning, I actually continued to see a drop in my weight, even though I was like gaining muscle mass. So, weight again is like super personal, and I don't necessarily need to share all of that with you guys, but what I will say is like I pretty immediately dropped like 5 to 7 pounds, probably a lot of inflammation because I wasn't eating that great when I started, but then I like kind of hung out there for a little bit, and then I got down to about like 10-pound weight loss, and that was all through still eating in like a calorie surplus and reducing my cardio to walking mostly. So I love to walk. I just didn't always see the benefit. And now that I've experienced that firsthand, I really plan to kind of keep that in. So I'll kind of hit like where I'm going next and what I'm doing from here. But like 2 big takeaways for me was like trying to keep my meal timing around my gym time, especially when lifting weights, and then like incorporating some like intentional walking as my source of cardio, and maybe decreasing how often and frequent I'm going through some intense workouts. Because that really my body seemed to really respond well to that. Okay, so one of the biggest questions that I get asked is like, what did you eat? Like, what was your, and not like in my prep, because I did some videos about that, but like, what was your first meal? So the very first thing I had this is a hard question. So you eat differently the day of the show. They want you to have more carbs, more fats, more salts, so that you kind of like puff up a little bit before you go on stage so your muscles are really filled out. Again, these are things I wouldn't know on my own. This is why having a coach and somebody who knows kind of like the drill and what to do and all that on show day is really, really important. But anyway, so like besides all of that stuff, like kind of the weird stuff that I got to eat, the very first thing I put in my mouth post show was a Reese's egg. So Easter was like 3 weeks before the show and there were Reese's eggs all in the grocery store. And I was like, dang, Reese's are like my favorite candy, number one. And number two, I truly and wholeheartedly believe that the shapes have the best ratio of chocolate to peanut butter. So, the Christmas trees, you know, the pumpkins and the eggs, big fans. And so they were all, I was just surrounded by them and I didn't buy them at all. And then I was like, you know what, I want one of those. So I ordered a pack off of Amazon and had them shipped to me and brought one to the competition. So immediately after I was done, got my awards, I was changed out of that bathing suit and headed to my like actual cheat meal dinner. I popped a Reese's egg in my mouth. So that was thing number one. Other than that, I went out to dinner, which was great. A burger and fries sounded really good to me. I just didn't eat a lot of red meat. So I was kind of craving that red meat, and French fries I love. But also like just good, delicious, like food sounded really good. Like stuff with a lot of fat and a lot of flavor. And so the competition was up north in Colorado in Superior, and there's a restaurant that I really like up there. It's called The Acreage. It's by Stem Ciders. It's their food location, great views. If you've never been, you should totally check it out. Their food's really good. It's kind of a casual, like nice, but kind of also casual place. And I walked in like so overdressed and so tan with this full face of contoured makeup. And I'm sure everybody who was there was just like, what is this girl doing here? Like, what? Where does she think she is right now? But it was great. And so I had a flight of cider, which was my first alcohol in quite some time. And I had, I shared with my partner a basket of fries, big basket of fries, and that was amazing. Charcuterie board, so I got lots of cheese and meat. And then I also got a cider bratwurst in a bun. That was good. So like, yeah, bread, cheese, red meat, fried food, potatoes, like all the stuff that you don't get to eat, and some alcohol. So it was a really well-rounded and very delicious first meal. So that's what I ate. But I really have to say, like, another reason I really recommend Coleman, the food that I got to eat throughout was like good. That was a big difference between this prep and last prep. Like my first show, I can remember like hating some of my food or like feeling like I was truly eating cardboard. And that was just not the case. Like my food was good. It tasted similar. Like I used a lot of mustard. I used a lot of salt and pepper. So a lot of it had the same flavor for months at a time. And there wasn't a lot of variability. So if you're somebody who struggles like with eating the same thing over and over again, this may be a challenging process for you. But for me, I enjoyed my meals. Like sometimes they were the best part of the day. Like, and I would still eat them today. I had cod yesterday for dinner, and that was like a big thing that I ate pretty regularly. So I really wasn't sick of anything afterwards. So people would always be like, oh, like, what do you miss? What are you dying to eat? And like, I have to say the biggest like fries, or like the biggest thing that I looked forward to or like missed from normal life was the ability to like mentally shut down. So, this process is a lot. Like you need to make sure you get all 5 of your meals in. You need to make sure that you're meal prepping. And sometimes you were buying fresh food. So like sometimes your avocados, you'd only buy 3 and then you use them, and then you would need more before it necessarily was like time to go to the grocery store again. So like sometimes I would go to the grocery store like 3 or 4 times a week, just stop on my way home, buy one thing at a time, like just whatever you were running out of. I was cooking way more during my week. You always had to pre-plan, right? You had to bring your food with you 100% of the time if you were going to be out of your house or away from a food source for a long period of time, because there's no way to just like go grab something somewhere, like, right? Like you had to eat this specific way. So it was, and then just like fitting your workouts in, right? Like sometimes, especially when you got up to your cardio, it was sometimes you were working out for 2.5, maybe I got up to 3 hours once or twice, but it was really more like 2.5 hours at the gym at the day. So like just rearranging your whole schedule to make sure that this is your number one priority and that you can get everything in. Like that was how it was. And there were no rest days. There was no cheat. I mean, there were rest days, but there was no mental rest days, because like during those rest days, you were still eating the same food. You were still prepping for the next week. You were still checking in with your coach. You were still weighing. You were still like, there was just no stopping. so more than like specific foods, I just craved the ability to like shut my brain off and like take life as it came and enjoy the day, or eat whatever. Like, I guess like it wasn't so much about the food, but it was more about like not prep food for a day, or not think about how much food I had in the fridge, or not go to the grocery store. Like, it just really became like very all consuming. And so I craved the ability to just like put it down and like think about something else. So that's been nice. I've definitely had some like I've gotten my mental freedom back, which was like the biggest thing that I missed. Okay. So people say like, what was the best part, or what was your favorite part about the process? And I think one of my very favorite parts was like meeting other competitors. So I went to posing classes on Thursdays, and I got to meet a lot of other people, some who were competing in the same show as me, some who compete all the time, some who were prepping for a show someday and they just wanted to kind of start the process now. But it was great to get to know all these other people. Like, my life was definitely enriched by like some of the bonds that I formed with the other competitors. So that was like definitely one of my favorite parts. And then I really enjoyed the whole process. Like, I like having a goal. I'm somebody who does well with having a goal. So I liked having something to work for, and I think it's really, really motivating to see you put in hard work that is hard, right? It's a commitment. But when you see it paying off and you see those like changes, or the scale moving, or you get a compliment from your coach, or, you know, like just when you see it all coming together, that's like really motivating. So I really did enjoy the process, and just like showing up for myself and doing something that I wanted to do. Like, that felt really good. And then another like highlight was the day after the show. So the day after the show, I went out to brunch. For those of you who don't know, breakfast food is like my favorite. I love bacon, I love eggs, I love sausage, I love breakfast sandwiches, I love scrambles, I love hashes, I like whatever. I love brunch. It's like my total jam. So going out to brunch the next day for the first time in months with my friends, and I mean, all my friends really showed up. There was like 15 people there. It was so much fun. Like, I think having missed out on a lot of social activities and normalcy over the past, 5 or 6 months, it just made me really appreciate like how special that moment was and how fun that moment was. So really, like, the Sunday after was, it was so great. That was definitely also one of my favorites. Okay, then somebody asked me like, what was your least favorite part? Well, the least favorite part for me really wasn't any of it, other than just like, it does become all encompassing. So it took away from a lot of my relationships, and it was hard to, I felt very self-focused, centered and focused for so long. And like, I talked about myself all the time. I talked about my process all the time. I was just like very consumed, and like, you do kind of have to be consumed. It kind of forces you into that, even if you're aware of it and don't like it. But yeah, that was like one of my least favorite parts, was just not really able to kind of think about anyone else, or just being so self-centered and so consumed was tough. Another least favorite part was like the day of, right? Like, you work so hard, and then it's just really a subjective show, right? It's just like what the judges think of you, and how you looked in comparison to the other competitors who showed up that day, right? It's not like any other sport where it's like, this person did this the fastest, or lifted this the most, or they did this first, or something that's really measurable. Like, there's not a ton of measurability. So just the amount of dedication and hard work it takes for you to then just be standing up there and have somebody kind of decide for you like how you did or whatnot. That was kind of a bummer, but that is what it is. That's the sport. And so, like I said at the beginning, like, holding on to why I did this in the first place, which was to show myself that I could give 100% and actually like dedicate 100% to this process. And that I did. So like, goal met. Doesn't matter what somebody says that they think I deserve as far as placing is concerned. But, yeah, so I think like one of the biggest things that I'm like the most proud of, I guess, is just the amount of dedication that I was able to put into it, and that I was able to see the goal through. And it was a goal on so many levels, right? Like, it was a goal from when I was a kid, I think of myself as a kid, when I was a late teenager who woke up one day and decided she wanted to do a fitness competition. Like, I saw that through. And then there was like the other goal of like, okay, I did the fitness competition. Now I want to like do it better and show up for myself more. And I did that. And then there was the goal of like, I want to make 30, like my fittest year, and I want to do these 3 things. And so I did all 3 of those things, and one of those was the bodybuilding competition, and there was the other part of me that was like, I'll do this again when I turn 30, right? Like these were all fleeting thoughts that I had at one point in my life, and like I decided to actually like that what I wanted and that this goal deserved focus, and like I deserved focus, and I deserved to be able to like look forward to something and do something for myself that like clearly was meaningful and that I wanted to do. So I'm really proud that I did it, and I didn't talk myself out of it, because I will say, like, I mean, I went back and forth with Coleman, like asking a million questions about like, you know, what the training process would be like, what the show would be like, how long did I have to commit to it. Like I was a little wishy-washy at the beginning. Like I wanted to do it, but I didn't really want to do it, kind of thing. I'm sure you all can relate. Like you want the outcome, but like the work that you know that's about to have to go into it was like, do I want to do all that? And so I paid him, and then he sent me my first week's plan, and it was, I mean, just scrolling through my email, just scrolling of like 4 or 5 page documents of all these things that I need to do. And not to mention that, like my whole life was about to change. Like I no longer was going to go to an hour-long fitness class that I was told what to do in the moment, and it included my warm-up, right? And like now all of a sudden I needed to make sure I ate breakfast every single day before I went to the office, and I needed to prep my own food because I was going on this adventure by myself and not with a partner. And like I was going to have to go to posing X amount of times. I mean, just truly just like, here's this whole plan, like let's get going. And immediately like my subconscious brain was like, holy camole, we can't do that. Like you are already so busy, you are already, you know, don't make enough money, you don't need to be spending money on like these supplements and all of these things. You already don't have enough time. Like there was like so many things coming up for me that was like, you can't do this, like this is too much. And I think it was because I'd already paid him and I wasn't going to back out, and I knew I wanted to do this, but I chose to like look at all of those fears that came up, like, and I was like, you know what, I can do this. And like decided that I wasn't going to look that far in advance. I was just going to start the next day. So the next day I like went to the grocery store, I bought all the things that I needed. I did what I had to do, and I just started taking it like a day at a time. And before I knew it, I was loving the process. And I think that's just like a sign or a lesson from a lot of things, is like, you know, our emotional brain, our immature brain wants to keep us where we are because it, you know, change is scary. It knows that like you can do well, you can thrive with what you're doing right now, and like it feels safe, right? And it's trying to protect you. But then all of a sudden all these changes come up, and it's like, I can't protect you from change. You like, it doesn't know that necessarily those changes are gonna like put you in a better position or do well for you. So it comes up with all these excuses and all these fears about like trying to keep you kind of like stuck in where you're at. And it's a protection mechanism, right? But what I have learned multiple times, time and time again, really a lot since like 2020, is like, if you're scared of something, lean into it, push through it, take action, take one step forward, because a lot of what we want and a lot of the reward comes through facing our fears and showing up for ourselves. So I'm really glad that I didn't let those fears get the best of me. Okay, I'm gonna wrap it up here. I know I've been chatting for a while, and I know that like 1, maybe 2 people are interested in hearing this, but I just wanted to like kind of fill you guys in on how I did in the competition, because a lot of people ask about that. So I competed in 3 categories. One was considered true novice, the other was novice, and then the last one was the open class. So true novice means that I was competing against people who it was all of our first show. Now, you've all heard me say that I had done a show before, so it's kind of like, how'd you get into that? Well, there are different federations. There are different like groups. So the show that I had done before was a natural muscle show. The show that I did now was considered an NPC show. So this was my very first NPC show. So I was able to compete in true novice. And that's where I placed the best. I placed second out of, I believe, 5 girls, which I was like thrilled with. Like that was really cool. That's definitely a winner moment for me. It's like when they called the 3rd place person and I knew I was either top 1 or top 2, I was like pretty blown away and pretty excited about it. So then the next category was the novice category, which I'd have to double check exactly what the rules and regulations are, but basically people who've competed before can show up in this category. But if you have won anything, I think if you've won your open category or maybe like even placed in your open category, then you're no longer considered a novice and you can't compete there any longer. So there were 6 girls in that category and I took 4th in that one, which like I would have loved to be top 3. You know, you'd always love to do better, but whatever, I placed. And that was like my goal, was to place in at least the novice and the true novice categories, because I knew that's like where I had the best shot. This sport is definitely something where like the more experienced you are, the calmer you are on stage, the more you have like confidence about you, it pays off in your stage presence, and you just feel more comfortable and you know what's going on. So people who have experience do tend to do better. So I knew I had the best shot of placing and doing well in the novice categories. So then lastly was the open category, and that's based on height. So I was in the like 5'3" to 5'4" height category, which lo and behold, tons of people at this show in the bikini division were also in the 5'3" to 5'4" division. So I think there was somewhere like 9, maybe 12 girls in my height category. So it was steep. There was a lot to compete with, because I think they only placed the top 5. And I did not make the top 5, so I did not place in that last category. And yeah, I would be lying if I said I wasn't bummed. Like, it would have been cool to place in every single category. It would have been cool to maybe win the true novice category and be top 3. Like, it would always be cool to like have the awards that you get match the work and the dedication that you felt like you put in. But such is life. That's not how it is. And I'm not disappointed at all. Like, I did well in comparison to other people, and I felt confident on stage, and I know that I like full on gave it pretty much my all. I think if I was to do it again, which I'll answer that question here in a second, but if I was to do it again, I think my all would shift a little bit, and it would probably be more than I gave it this time even. But again, like, you just learn things every single time, and you take that experience and you grow with it. So yeah, so then the next 2 biggest questions that I've received are just, like, would you do it again? 100% I would do it again. I totally would do it again. I loved the process. I thought I looked pretty good. I felt like I was good at something. It felt like it was great. I really would do it again. It's a very expensive sport to continuously compete in, so I'm taking a break and not doing that anytime soon. Also, it's hard on your body. It's not really that healthy of a sport to do. So like, I don't, health matters to me, and that's important. So it's not something that I'm going to continue to put my body through on a regular basis, but I see it as like maybe another bucket list item where like maybe I do it, when I'm 35 or 40 or 50 or I don't know, next time it feels good, but it's not going to be like an ongoing competition thing, but I would absolutely do it again. And then the other question I get asked is like, what's next? And for those of you who don't know, I'm getting married in September. So my like whole brain and any spare time that I have during the week is shifting to just being a better partner and showing up and helping to plan our special day that's coming up in September. So no more fitness adventures for me, other than just taking what I learned and figuring out what I like to do and what feels good to me in the moment, and doing that, and just kind of regaining my autonomy and working out in whatever way it feels good to my body and to myself emotionally. So nothing set in stone on the horizon, although I am running in the Boulder on Monday, but that's really, again, just like, I want to experience the race. I'm definitely not trying to win anything here, but yeah. So if you've watched, it's cool to see that people have popped on here and have checked it out, and maybe learned something, maybe found something interesting. If you still have any questions that persist, please feel free to reach out. And if you would like my coaches or any other coaches' information, also please feel free to reach out. But it was fun, kind of just like going through what the process was like and sharing a little bit about my experience. So thanks again for watching, and have a great night and a great rest of your week.